welcome to CIBER Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Serico, and today our guest is Mr. Thomas Clement. Now, Mr. Clement is an alumnus of Indiana University and Purdue University, and currently serves as the President and CEO of Mectra Labs, a medical and surgical manufacturing company based right here in Indiana. The company has more than 30 U.S. medical patents and is registered as a minority business enterprise. Mr. Clement is not only an entrepreneur, but also an established author of his inspirational biography titled Dust of the Streets, The Journey of a Biracial Orphan of the Korean War. Now in this session, Mr. Clement will give us a glimpse of his challenging yet very captivating personal story of struggles and survival, and how these trying times have eventually led him to build a strong foundation in creativity, innovation, entrepreneurship, and of course the spirit of philanthropy. Mr. Clement, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So your story is very inspirational and a powerful one, I think. So could you tell us a little bit more about your personal and your career journey? And was there a specific time that kind of made you realize I'm going to embrace these struggles and use it as constructive life learning lessons?
I don't know if there was one specific point in time. I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Korea in the middle of the Korean War, and my father was on the scene until I was around 4 years old, and then he disappeared. So when I was 4.5, my mother brought me to a street corner and told me to look down the street one way and not turn around. So that was the last time I saw any blood relatives. And I have no idea how long I was on the streets, but a Methodist missionary nurse found me and brought me to an orphanage. And I was in the orphanage for maybe 1.5 years, and then adopted into the U.S. in 1958.
Wow, that's an amazing personal story. But career-wise, I mean, you're the president and CEO of your own company, so that's a very interesting a step for you, and maybe you could share a little bit more about that.
Well, in 24 hours, I could no longer understand anyone, and no one could understand me. So it wasn't explained to me that I was going to a new country with a new language and culture and everything. So I thought I had become overnight instantly stupid. And this inferiority complex stayed with me right up until college. So you figure if you don't know English, then, and I was immediately put into first grade, you will not learn math, history, or anything in the class. So that was a very difficult thing. Now, when I travel these days, when I go into a foreign country, the first thing I like to do is turn on the television to get an insight into that society. I listen to the language, see what kind of advertisements there are. So when I came to the U.S., one of the first television shows I watched was The Three Stooges. And I thought all Americans were like the Three Stooges. They hit each other in the head with ladders and pulled each other's nose with pliers. But the most important show that I watched was a cartoon called Clyde Crash Cop. And Clyde Crash Cop was an inventor. He was tall and skinny, and everything he wrote on the board came to life. And so because of that show, I wanted to be an inventor when I grow up. And it's odd, now today I am an inventor. I have 42 patents, and we 3D print everything. So everything we draw in 3D, we push a button and it's printed in 3D in medical grade plastic. So it's odd that I've grown up to be Clyde Crash Cop.
Well, there you go. You're a child superhero almost, a model. Mm-hmm. Now you are that. So you obviously hold very different titles. I mean, you're obviously an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. but you're also an inventor, an engineer, also an author, and you're very much involved in a lot of philanthropic work. So what do you think is that common foundation denominator that really motivates you to reach your full potential with the different posts or the titles that you hold?
Well, I think they're all interrelated, and when you live in an orphanage, absolutely nothing is yours. The clothes you wear. So when I came here, and my parents threw my first birthday party, all the neighborhood kids came and gave me presents. And what I did was I took all these presents and put them into a corner of our living room, and I stood guard over them. So I missed my first birthday party. All the other kids were eating cake and playing, and I stood guard over my presents. So, but it taught me a lesson that, people do that. They make a lot of money, and they put it away into a bank account, and they stand guard over it, and then they die, and they can't take it with them. So I don't want to miss any more birthday parties. We started a foundation called Thomas and Wansuk Foundation, and we give to various charities, women's group, battered women's group, just a variety of, Healy Masonry agendas. And right now we're doing one with a DNA project for adoptees. They can receive a free DNA kit, and then through the organization, the DNA company, they can contact blood relatives for the first time.
That's amazing. So I want to focus a little bit more about your company, Mectra Labs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a locally owned, a small to medium-sized business,
Mm-hmm.
but like you mentioned, 42 U.S. medical patents. That's very impressive. So how could you maybe give us a little bit more insight on what kind of work the company actually does, and how does this topic of social responsibility and philanthropy really kind of is incorporated in the business's works?
Well, we manufacture single-use surgical devices for laparoscopic surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we came up with a lot of these designs is I observed surgery. I've been in over 1,000 surgeries all over the U.S. and various places on the planet. And what happens is you observe the doctor using the tools that to the best that they can. And a lot of times a tool will either break or it's just not correctly designed for what they want to do, what he or she is trying to accomplish. So then I go back into the lab and create something that I think would help speed up the process. And then the doctor uses it, and we keep modifying it until we have a final design, and then we apply for a patent.
Wow. And are there special social responsibility or philanthropy initiatives that the company really upholds?
Well, I used to go to North Korea on humanitarian missions, and I brought a lot of surgical instruments with me because they have very little in as far as medical care. So that was very rewarding. I've been there, I think, over 3 times, traveling back and forth. And to go on a humanitarian mission, you really have to put politics and your opinion aside and just concentrate on transferring the technology and helping people.
That's great. So, wrapping things up, if you could, and what kind of advice do you think you want to leave with people who might have a similar background as you, or young students, or young and up-and-coming entrepreneurs who might be struggling?
If you want to go into business for yourself, don't do it. It's a headache. Now that's a bad joke. There's a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges is being underfunded. You need to plan ahead, work out your budget, work out a time frame, and then when you think that you have included everything that you could possibly include, take your budget and multiply it by 2, and take your timeline and multiply that by 2. What happens so often is you run into obstacles that were unplanned, and you run out of money and go belly up, file Chapter 11. So That's my advice.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Clement, we really appreciate your time, and it was such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
Well, that's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, if you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please contact us at cyber, that's CIBER, at indiana.edu.